Huddle up, teammates, and welcome to another episode of the Coach's Huddle. I'm your host, Coach Hudson, aka Hudrico. And tonight, the Coach's Huddle goes to the squad car, and we're going to have an interview with Micheal Jackson, a police officer in the Gary Police Department in Gary, Indiana. Jackson, a former military veteran, has been serving the Gary Police Department for the last 7 years, and we want to hear his take with the things going on in society, the death of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, just to name a few. It has to be tough to be black and blue. So come on in, teammates. Let's sit down and let's get some good answers with Jackson. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Coach's Huddle. Today, we are very honored to have Micheal Jackson here as a guest, a police officer with the Gary Police Department. Officer Jackson, how you doing this evening, sir?
I'm good. How you doing?
Man, we are excited to have you, man. Excited to have you in the huddle, man. We don't came to the squad car. Hopefully we can get all the super secrets of being a police. Everybody wanted to be a police at one time. We played cops and robbers at one time as kids, but you took it to the next level and became a cop. But before we get into how you became a cop, if I'm not mistaken, you used to be in the Army before you joined the police force. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. 8 years in the Army.
8 years in the Army, and then after the Army, how did you go from being in the Army to the police department? What made that decision for you?
Well, actually, my first job when I got out the Army was not the police. I was working at BP Oil, making some pretty good money. Then since I was a new guy, they had a strike going on, and I ended up getting laid off. So I was just, thinking about all my background and everything that I learned, and Army and police kind of fall right in line with everything. So that's how it happened. The career path presented itself, and I took it.
So when you decided to be a police officer, there wasn't the same turmoil that there is being a police officer now. So what was that determining factor that pushed you over the edge? And I know you mentioned you had experience in the Army. That was one of the key factors. But was there anything else that said, hey, this was going to be the job for me?
Yes. So, I was looking at career paths and everything like that. And my dad's been a police officer for over 30 years. So talking to him and seeing how he felt about it and where policing was headed from his standpoint is what really stood out to me and wanted me to try and be a police even more. Because growing up, I got to see him do it every day. All the long nights, all the extra stuff that comes with it. And my dad's pretty successful, I would say so. So it seemed like a pretty good path to go with.
Being a cop today is probably even more difficult than it was then with what's going on and that. Can you explain what is it like being a cop? And with that climate, do you regret being a police officer?
Well, first, do I regret it? No. Let me get that out the way. I do not regret being a police officer. It is a lot harder now than around the time when my father started. And from when I first started about 7 years ago to now, it's already changed a great deal. Because, you got to think about it with social media and technology and everything that's just so easily accessible to people. Things can get misconstrued in a good and a bad way at the same time. So then, even with technology, now we got everybody with all these high-tech phones, people recording everything, good and bad. Then you got people trying to purposely provoke the police to initiate something happening. And that's where it's turning, because although I do agree people should be able to see and record whatever they feel like they should be able to, but sometimes it actually hurts certain situations because the way that you have to react as a police officer is definitely changed.
So we're going to rip the Band-Aid off in regards to getting deep into these questions as far as getting a point of view that most people don't get a chance to get. Now, when you are a part of a team, you got different teammates. You got big teammates, little teammates, black teammates, you got white teammates. Right now, for white police officers, it's very difficult because there's been some incidents, George Floyd, Breonna Taylor. The name and list goes on and on and on. Now, I'm pretty sure as police officers, when you guys look at the incidents that have happened, there has to be things that you say, okay, it shouldn't have went this way, it shouldn't have went that way. How do you, as a Black police officer, work with some of your white counterparts in these situations when things go awry, and you still have to have that person's back when you go out? Because when you guys go out, you guys are the blue team. When you go out in those situations, knowing what the tension that's in the streets, how do you deal with that? And then how do you go about it and not let that affect you as you do your job?
Well, for one, it's extremely hard because being a Black person, and okay, where I work is predominantly Black, first off. So we do have white police officers who work with us as well. So it's hard being it's hard being a Black man as a police officer as well as being white, because you got to think about it. We are pretty much looked at as, a lot of people want to call us Uncle Toms and working for the white man and trying to bring the Black person down and all that type of stuff. And me as a police officer, that's not what I'm trying to do at all. I'm trying to help more than anything, because I'm trying to show people a different side of how they let their anger get the best of them and try to project it a different way. And honestly, while I work, I haven't seen too many issues with white officers being racist towards people personally. So it's kind of hard to speak to, how should I say? It's kind of hard to speak to it when it comes to, now, like me watching it on video about white officers being racist and doing stuff that they should have never done, because there's plenty of videos like that. And I agree wholeheartedly with a lot of the stuff that I've seen on our side, as being a Black person, or not the police, just being a human being.
Yes, sir.
Over anything.
Yes, sir.
A lot of things shouldn't go the way that they have, Black or white.
When something goes wrong, we all want to point towards one entity and say, this is the problem. The police are the problem. Well, you guys have this very unique role of having to be the anti-heroes, because when you think about it, we call you when there's a problem, but then as soon as you get there, you become the problem. Does that become frustrating? Does it make it even more difficult to want to do your job when, hey, you called me to help you, but when I come here to help you, you don't really want me to help you?
Yeah, and that happens quite often, a lot more often than people may actually realize, because we get called to calls all the time. People call us when we show up. Oh, I didn't call the police, this and that. They basically want us to solve their problems without knowing that they wanted the police involved in the first place. So that's where it becomes a lot harder. Because like I said, we get calls, we go to them, everybody act like they didn't call the police, and they get to argue in front of us, and we have to play a therapist to see what's going on and try to see what we can do to get the situation better, because it's not always easy. And that's the thing about being a police officer. It's almost like you're working 5 different jobs. You got to be a police officer sometimes. You got to be a mental health expert sometimes. It's just so many things that you have to try and, so many things that you have to try and break down in certain situations, because there's always a backstory and there's always more than what's always being told, majority of the time. Sometimes it's cut and dry, but a lot of times it's not. And then we have to make split-second decisions on what we're just being told right now, and we may not know everything that's going on or happening.
I can imagine that split-second decision does make it extremely difficult to make the right decision. So being in your shoes, being in that position, cut and dry, do you feel that police officers are trained adequately enough to make the right decisions in these situations?
No.
Damn. So
not all situations. Some, because you got to think about it. We get called to a lot of things that you have to put you can't be biased for one. And sometimes you get certain things that you might get called to that you've been in this situation and you think about how you would handle it, but that might not necessarily be the right thing to do at the same time. So, I mean, it's just hard all around because you basically have to, we have the ultimate judgment at the end of the day when it comes down to it. And it's not always the right call all the time either. And it's hard to, because like I said, it's like you got to be multiple entities in one person. And you can go from coming off a high from something really serious, and then you go to a different call and it's something minor, and you're still working off that energy that you just had when you were in a life or death situation. And you got to learn how to just cut and dry going from different people. And that's not always the easiest thing to do.
Now, listen, we all, talked about being cops, but if you can, now I know you got to spare the names to protect the innocent. Can you take us on an episode of Cops, man? Give us. Can you give us something to the listeners and viewers? Give us an episode of something that you don't been through that, maybe everybody don't even realize that y'all go through on a daily basis where you've put your life on the line of a crazy situation, man. Everybody loves a good story, man. What you got for us, Jackson?
Let's see. I mean, we get a lot of crazy stuff going on. Honestly, I mean, we get shootings every single day. So granted, people might not get shot every single day, but we always get somebody outside shooting nonstop. We always go looking for stuff. But let's see. We had a call where, let's see, we had some female yelling and screaming on the block. So we get there, and it's pitch black over there, abandoned houses everywhere. So, we walk in, we hearing the screaming, we do not know where it's coming from. We got the K9, but they don't have the scent to actually know what they're looking for at the point in time. So we go in this abandoned house, and we hear more screaming. So then we go in, searching through this abandoned house. We hear the girl screaming, help me, help me. And she's in this abandoned basement. But to get down there, it's like a giant step, like 2 or 3 steps that's not there. So they're missing. So we're going down, and we got to think about our own safety at the same time, as well as the other people who's in that house, because we don't know what's going on at that point in time. So we get down there. We basically have to try and jump off the steps. I think they got broken when this guy dragged this female down the steps. So we go down there, and we hear her screaming, he's raping me, he's raping me. We go there, we try to find him because it's a big house, but it's abandoned. So he's hiding in corners and in closets, and we got the dogs out searching, trying to find him, sniffing him. So then I have my back to him, to a certain door at one point in time when we're searching. There's a lady called for me. So I turn around, I look at her, and she said, he's right there, he's in there behind you. As soon as he bust open the door, as soon as he said that. And luckily, I turned that around in just enough time to actually apprehend him, because I don't know if he had a weapon, a knife, a gun, or anything. I could have been seriously hurting myself. So, yeah.
Listen, man, book him, Dano. Did you get to say book him, Dano, afterwards? I've been dying to say book him, Dano, man. Have you ever got to say book him, Dano? No,
I never said that.
Okay, stories like that, man, that's the side of it that people don't see, man, and that's one of the dangers, man. But here's a question for you, man, and this is also on a serious note. When you show up to a scene, all people see is a badge and a gun. Some people see you as a bad guy. Some people see you as a hero. But all the time, people see you as the situation. But what a lot of people don't see behind that badge is you're a father, you're a husband, and they don't see what you bring to the table. The stress that you have on this job, what does that bring home? How do you separate? Because that's a lot. Like the story you just mentioned, man, that's a lot to go home. I guarantee that gets the heart beating real fast when you go through that type of situation. How do you separate that when you get home?
Well, I mean, sometimes it's hard, but I got 3 kids, so I can't bring that home because, after working the type of job we work and the stress we go through daily, when I get home, I see my kid, my wife. They just put a smile on my face, and I'm just happy that I'm here and made it there with them. So honestly, for me personally, everybody might not be that way. When I get home, the police is out the door. I'm not thinking about it. I'm just there for my family and glad I'm home at this point in time. And my demeanor is already really calm and laid back. So it's kind of hard to get me to that point anyway. And I mean, you've been in the armed forces. I've been overseas. So I've been in some pretty stressful situations for a very long time now. So I think I got it pretty much almost mastered. Yeah, I mean, we all have our days where we just see some crazy stuff and we just have to just sit down and just be alone for a minute just to process and bring your high down from all the stresses that you did have and just let it go. But for the most part, yeah, when I get home, the police is out the door. I'm not trying to let anything linger on my mind. Like I said, I got kids and a wife. And they don't need to see that side of it.
I understand that. You have to leave Action Jackson at the precinct. I understand. So let's take this on an advice. We always try to motivate the young people or motivate people, period. What do you tell that young man and young woman who always wanted to be a police officer, but right now they're a little apprehensive and they don't want to do it? And I can't blame them with all the stuff going on. And right now, being a police officer, it's up there, man, with one of the toughest jobs you can have. So maybe they're a little skeptical about going to the academy or applying for that job. What do you tell that young man or young woman as a piece of advice to be a police officer?
For one, if you're doing it because of money, it's not going to work. You have to have a certain type of passion and want to help people, to see people do better, to be able to solve problems without hurting anybody or anything wrong with them. You got to actually want to be the police. I mean, for me, like I said, it's more so of a wanting to help somebody. Because if we don't do it, somebody else is going to do it. And if it's like a community that you lived in, that you grew up in, you build rapport with people and people know you. And it's not always it's easier for you to do your job. It's not always easy, but it's easier when you know people, people know you, they know your character, and that you're not here to actually make things worse or nothing like that. You're actually trying to help. But you actually have to want to do something like this. It's not just something that anybody can just pick up and say, hey, I'm going to be a police today. Other people's lives are in your hand for the most part. And that's not something that you can play with. And that's not any amount of money that you can just do something like that. Because other people have lives and families and everything else. So it's not just wake up one day, say, I'm going to be a police. You got to have a certain thing in your heart for people and wanting to help this, to do something like this, to be a good police officer. Let's just say that.
What do you say to those people who say, you know what, all the police crooked, defund the police. The police need to look, they get their budget too high. The people who are basically just decided they are against the police. What do you say to that person?
If there were no police, there would be no order in this world. We would basically be in a third world country, and that's not something that America needs or anybody else. We all want order, and every police isn't bad. There's bad apples in every job there is. There's not a job out here that's don't have somebody bad. Now it's more magnified because, for one, I feel like the media twists a lot of narrative, and they can control where people go with certain things and how they feel about certain things. And of course, you're going to see a lot more bad than good because the media, bad stuff sells, pretty much. That's really what it is. And I mean, if you run around seeing a bunch of good all day, then they're not going to really watch it.
Makes sense, man.
I honestly feel like because all I see is bad stuff about cops and everything else. It's far in between when I see a good act of police officers. Like, we save lives literally every single day. And all we hear about is how we take lives and everything else. And granted, I get that as well, because it's a lot of bad stuff happening on the same token, but it's a lot good happening as well. And it's unfortunate that people don't get to see it all good. But that goes back to what I say. You got to have that certain thing in your heart that know that you're doing something good and push past that.
Last tough question for you, Jackson. What do you say to the black person that says the white cops are out to get us?
That is a tough question.
Welcome to the huddle.
I would just say everybody is not out to get you. Now, like I said, we know there are some bad ones. And I would just say, just try your hardest not to put yourself in a predicament to where it's going to hurt you. And it's something that's, see, a lot of people like to argue and just keep things going. And I get that, because when you really have been done wrong and know that you've been done wrong, it's hard to bite that urge and say, hey, this is not right. This shouldn't be happening. And I totally agree. But like you said, in this climate and how things are going, a lot of people have short fuses right now. And it's hard because, like I said, I'm a calm person. I don't really escalate anything. So you have to think that everybody is not going to be that way. And some people are power hungry. Some people may have gotten bullied in school and all that stuff. But they say white people come to police and everything else. So you got to think about that when you come in contact with them sometimes. Because everybody's not wrapped too tight. Some people are bad police officers, but there's a lot who aren't. So it's hard because you don't know who you're going to get that day if you are out there doing something wrong. And if you're not doing something wrong, you get messed with anyway, then I mean, that's where it's a real problem.
True statement.
I mean, that's a tough.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is where we have our final timeout, man. Our final timeout of today is, teammates, listen. Whether you are black and blue, white and blue, no matter what your skin color is, we are in times where situations, we can't control them. You don't know what that outcome is going to be. All you can do is control what you can control, and that is your actions. You have to do your best to make sure you're doing the best that you can. I can't guarantee you that doing what's right is going to always lead to the right thing, because we've seen incidents where being at home, playing a video game doesn't mean that you're going to be safe. And I can't tell you by sitting there recording is going to make everything right, because sometimes agging on a situation doesn't make it better. For some black families, telling their son the right thing to do is a tough conversation, but it's a conversation that needs to be had. And for white families, there's a conversation that needs to happen as well. Your skin color doesn't change the conversation. Ladies and gentlemen, the conversation needs to be had no matter who you are and what your family is. We'd like to thank our guest, Micheal Jackson, for coming on tonight. Where can the people find you if they want to follow you, see what's going on, keep up with you and the squad?
I'm just a regular guy on Facebook, Jackson Teller. You see me and see how I am in real life outside of anything other than being the police. A calm guy, play video games.
This is The Huddle, and we out.